Hello. Well, we've had our Whoopi Goldberg moment here in the UK, haven't we? And it all started here in The Guardian with an article by somebody called Tomiwa Owolade, and the burden of this article is racism in Britain is not a black and white issue, it's far more complicated. Owolade was talking about her own puzzlement that in an incident that happened years before, when a school friend maintained that white people cannot experience racism. So, of course, Diane Abbott had to weigh in on that. Diane Abbott has been for 40 years a Labour Member of Parliament representing Hackney. She was the Shadow Home Secretary and best pal of Jeremy Corbyn. And so somebody of political gravitas. Oh, yes, and she is constantly referred to as Diane Abbott, the first black female to be elected an MP. Right, and also has been frequently made fun of for getting things wrong when she's talking about budgets. And she was the Shadow Home Secretary. Anyway, she wrote a letter in response to this article in which she said that Jews and Gypsies may experience prejudice like red-haired people might, but that all, if you'll forgive the expression, that all paled into insignificance next to the racism experienced by black people. This is the letter. I'm going to make this a bit bigger, I think. There we are. Tomiwa Owolade claims, now she says claims here, that Irish, Jewish and traveller people all suffer from racism. And note how she puts this word, racism. Oh no, I'm sorry, I tried to highlight the word and it brought up another page. So I'm not going to try highlighting the words anymore, I'll just point to them. Notice how she puts the word racism in scare quotes when it's applied to Irish, Jewish and traveller people. Not just Irish Jews and travellers, but Irish, Jewish and traveller people. I could do a whole video on that use of the expression, but let's just get on with this racism in quotes. It's sort of like, you know, when somebody says rather cattily that an older chap turned up at a party with his niece. Yeah, anyway. She then does concede the following. They undoubtedly experience prejudice. And then she says, this is similar to racism, and the two words are often used as if they're interchangeable. And I am interrupting myself to tell you that I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I let you know when I've uploaded a video on Twitter and Gab. You'll find the links to all of those in the description. You'll also find a link to sites where you can donate. But one of the best ways you can help my channel is by liking this video, by sharing it, and by subscribing, and by checking, if you're on YouTube, checking that you're still subscribed. Okay, that covers the business. Let's get back to Miss Abbott, who probably would have done a lot better for herself had she been the Abbott of one of those silent orders. And then she says, this is similar to racism, and the two words are often used as if they're interchangeable. It's true that many types of white people with points of difference, such as redheads, can experience this prejudice. So, the systematic incineration of both Jews and Gypsies within living memory is just like being a redhead, is it? Perhaps the Germans were just worried about keeping them warm then. Okay, back to Abbott. But they are not all their lives subject to racism. In pre-civil rights America, Irish people, Jewish people and travellers were not required to sit at the back of the bus. In apartheid South Africa, these groups were allowed to vote. And at the height of slavery, there were no white-seeming people manacled on the slave ships. Actually, I'd take issue with that because there were plenty of white people sent to America as slaves. And what about the ones who were sent to Australia, the prisoners? I mean, virtually they were slaves too. But, you know, it seems that Diane Abbott is as ignorant of history as she is of mathematics. OK, let's press on here. So Miss Abbott has been accused of anti-Semitism. Actually, you know what? I'm not so sure. Certainly, she has trivialised the Nazi genocide of both of these peoples, but I'm not so sure that she did that for anti-Semitic purposes. Let's look at what she said. She started talking about the disabilities suffered by black people in parts of the USA. She implies that segregation was going on all over the USA, by the way, and it wasn't. And then she talks about South Africa. Neither of those places has anything to do with Britain. In fact, in Britain, as in most of Europe, if not quite so bad, Jews and gypsies have historically had a much worse time than blacks. So why she made reference to, like, the southern United States and South Africa? Can it be that not having that much to support her argument here, she has to draw examples from completely unrelated situations? I mean, for all the reference that Louisiana has to do with Lincolnshire or South Carolina has to do with Suffolk, she might as well have quoted the awful situation of the Sami in Sweden, for instance, or the Ainu in Japan, or indeed the Armenians in Turkey. Or Turkey, as Erdogan has been pleased to call it, no doubt to deflect any jokes about his country being totally stuffed by his corrupt stewardship of the economy over there. No, what Abbott was talking about was probably not anti-Semitism, although there may have been an element. After all, she has spent a lot of time kicking around with Corbyn and his pals. But what she was doing in that letter was redefining racism for her own purposes. And you know, I can never forgive people for messing around with the English language. But what she was doing was redefining the word racism to apply the meaning of that word to a specific group of people. Call the other stuff prejudice, if you want. But what happens to black people is racism, and therefore get special, well, again, if you'll forgive the expression, special privilege. It becomes the automatic and indisputable winner of the oppression Olympics. So I'd say that what she was doing was self-serving, dishonest, grasping, predatory, and of course, because any sensible would-be demagogue should have realised that most people here wouldn't fall for it, it was also unforgivably lazy and stupid. And that's why Keir Starmer was absolutely right to suspend her from being a Labour MP. She brought shame to the Labour Party. After all, whoever heard of an MP who was self-serving, dishonest, grasping, predatory, and unforgivably lazy and stupid? All right, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Granniopteryx design or Granbo. with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.